had whatever sang or had any of my songs used.
Right. Yeah, that's very impressive. So, well, anyway, can we go ahead and get the interview started?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, so you were born in Salt Lake City in 1938, according to my information. But you were raised in... is that wrong?
Incorrect.
Uh-oh. Okay, what do we got?
Well, what happened is I think that some of the historians going back to the 50s, they saw me playing the part of a 17, 18-year-old kid and assumed I was 17 or 18.
Mm-hmm.
Next time, I had already graduated from high school, spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, 4 years in college before I got to California and did that movie. So I was born in 1929.
Wow. Okay. So, and then you moved to Idaho. That's where you were raised, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
A little town named Shoshone, Idaho was a railroad stop crossing, had 300 people. So it was very, very small and actually a fabulous place to grow up as a kid. You know, pheasants and duck hunting, and you could be the star of every athletic sport because, you know, they had like 6 grades in one class because in school there were so few kids.
Right, right. Were you into athletics at the time?
Oh yeah, I've always been heavily into athletics, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, golf. You know, the problem was I loved all the sports so much that I never became really first team in anything. I was second in a lot of things. I high jump 6'4" at the University of Idaho. I won a lot of golf tournaments, small, local teams here in California, but never really became. But I had a great time with every sport. I love the sporting activities.
Yeah, great. So how did a young man from a small town in Idaho end up in Hollywood making movies?
Well, when I first came to California, I had no idea. I arrived here with $3 in my pocket.
Ooh.
I knew that Idaho was not a place at that time for the opportunity that I hoped for in my life. So I just backed up in the car and came to California. The next morning, I went up the Sunset Strip and found a gas station that could use an attendant, and I got an advance from the guy at the gas station, and I was, in business till I could find a better area to go to, another profession. I wasn't thinking acting.
Oh, so that wasn't in your mind?
No. But I did hang out at that time at a place called Schwab's Drug Store. It was on Sunset Strip, and a lot of actors and people frequented the place, and I ran into and got to know an actress named Judy Meredith, who had a TV series with Ronnie Burns. That's the George and Gracie Burns show of the time of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we dated and went going steady, and I used to get out and pick her up in an acting class 3 times a week. And I would sit in the back and wait till she finished. And finally she said, Don, why don't you join the class? Have fun. It's fun. And I thought, well, and maybe way in the back of my mind, I had a yearning to be an actor. I don't know. There are recesses we don't even reach into,
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, I'll do that. So I joined the class, and then we put out a play strictly for family members, and I had like 30 or 40 people come in and watch the play. And it just as luck would have it, Hugo Haas and his wife, Bibi, who's a movie producer, came in and liked my performance and came backstage and said, the next movie that I do, I want you to star in.
Wow.
Young romantic lead. And so I was thrilled, and he brought a script about 3 months later, and I looked it over, and it was great, and I was happy. But it was with Cleo Moore, who was like kind of the Marilyn Monroe of the day in Hollywood. And so when he showed Cleo Moore a picture of me as the young romantic lead, she said, Hugo, he's too young for me. I can't do it with him. So Hugo came back to me and said, I'm sorry, Don, I've got to change this because Cleo Moore was his bell cow, the one that was leading the money into this thing.
Right.
he had to, go along with her. So I thought, oh, okay, fine, that's Hollywood, and I paid no attention to it. But a year later, he goes back with the second script, and I did the young romantic lead with Carol Morris, who was Miss Universe of the day, and I was on my way. And
what film was that? What was your first film?
That was called, at the time, it was called Paradise Alley. But I think later on it was changed to, I'm not sure. It was Paradise Alley, though. Okay.
And so you were basically refused for the first part because you were too young, and yet you were in your mid to late 20s at the time, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I looked young,
But you looked young, right.
That youthful look was there. I was always a kid until I got to be about 45 or 50, and all of a sudden it was a transition. I became the old man because I had gray hair along both sides, big solid gray. And of course, I've been pretty fortunate. I'm going on 80 this year, and I look pretty good for my age. I've held together. I guess if you're still around, you're doing pretty good.
Absolutely, money ahead there. So now you did a number of television shows too. Did you go into TV right after you made that first film?
I went into whatever I could get into. And you have an agent, and they would send you out on both TV and now there's a lot of commercials, but at that time not many commercials. But I got out on TV, and but you find in Hollywood, I don't know today what it's like, but in those days, it was not so much as how good you were, it was who you knew. My fishing buddy, Charlie Weintraub, was an attorney, sold foreign film distribution. We used to go fishing down San Diego, deep sea fishing. Well, he knew the casting director at MGM. And so he's talking to the casting guy, and he says, hey, a friend of mine, Sullivan, is a good young actor. So I get knocked for hire with Rob Meeker. I did a show there. In Schwab's Drugstore, I met Eddie and Millie Dean, that director and writer team, who did a lot of stuff at Warner Brothers and different areas. As a result of that, we got to be friends, and everything that Eddie would do, he'd find a part in it for me. I worked with two times with Warner Brothers in Hawaii and things like this, and then he had an independent movie, one of the monster movies. I did a small part in.
Yeah,
but it was
that
great? No, not That's why Nick Adams was such a success in Hollywood. He died very young, unfortunately, but he knew how to get out with the writers and directors and smooth it up, and that's what it's all about.
All about the smoothing. So, hey, speaking of Eddie Dean, now I have a credit for you in Curse of the Undead. It was like a vampire.
Yeah, that was one of them I did. Eddie called me up and he said, I'm doing a Western monster thing, the vampire, whatever it was. He said, you got one day's work, one line. But, it was Christmas time, and listen, I was grateful for that one day's work.
Right.
A couple of $300. And, in those days, I didn't have the backup there was no home here, no friends here, really, nothing for me to fall back on. So I'm trying to survive in Hollywood. It's more than an accomplishment. It's just a matter of survival. Still occurs to a great degree, I think, with actresses and actresses. You see them. I was just down having breakfast with my daughter, who's an actress, and we're in there, and every one of the waiters and waitresses are all actors. They're actresses. So it's a tough route.
Right. So your daughter followed in your footsteps then?
Yeah, she's doing really well. She's worked 3 times this last month. She did The Mentalist, and she did another TV show, and then an independent film movie. Not for me. She's just getting smaller parts, but she's really rapidly rising. So we'll see what happens. Most of all, she has a lot of fun, and I think that's the answer to it. Is to really enjoy it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Day by day in today's environment, it's pretty hectic.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can enjoy what you're doing, that's half the battle there. What is your daughter's screen name?
Lucia Sullivan.
I'm sorry. First name was
Lucia.
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 Okay. Gotcha. Lucia.
She's on the web. You can look her up on the web.
I'll check that out. Very good. Huh. So back to you. Teenage Zombies came along, and that was in the what, 1956 or 7? Is that right? When you made that?
57, I believe. Yeah.
So
that was Warren.
Jerry Warren. Yeah, Jerry Warren.
Jerry Warren. Yeah, Jerry Warren. It's interesting. I think we set a record with that movie. I don't know any other movie that was shot in 24 hours. 24 hours? Yep.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of a lot of stuff to get done in one day.
It really is. We would take and the sound guy would say, "Jerry, I can't hear him," and Jerry would say, "We'll have it later." And the lighting technician says, "A lot of shadows," and Jerry would say, "Well, that's atmosphere." And we'd do a master, and that was it. Go to the next, and then had a wall and line you up on the wall and get reaction shots. You'd get up to the wall, fear, love, scared. Who's that? And you're supposed to give a reaction to that verbal command, but he only had. I think the budget was $10,000.
Wow.
Jerry was probably thinking half of that for himself, so that didn't leave much left.
Now, I've read in interviews that the Warren was something of a screamer. Was that what you found?
No, I didn't find that.
No.
No.
So he never.
Not on that movie. He didn't scream at all.
Oh, okay. And
his wife Bree was in the movie as the second female and very nice. She went on to have a big career as a movie director.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually read an interview with her, and she said that she made that film back to back, or Jerry did, with another film, and they cost about $15,000 each. So did you get any money out of that gig?
I think I was the only one that did. At the time, I was a SAG member.
Oh, okay.
And so Jerry said to me, I could get in real trouble with SAG on this, I guess, but I don't think so. Jerry said, we're not paying any salaries for this. And I said, we're paying $100, something like that. And I said, well, I'm a member of SAG, and I don't work for less than SAG minimum. So I'd find somebody else. So he agreed to pay me SAG minimum. And I said, listen, it's not my business to supervise the movie, whether or not, you're following all the rules of SAG or not, that's up to you. But I'm following the rules of SAG. I'm getting paid, and I'll work in the movie. So I did get paid a minimum SAG salary on that.
Which at that time was what, about $200 or $300 a day? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was $5,300, something like that.
Okay. And you were
Go ahead.
You were top billed in the movie. How'd you negotiate that?
That was funny. The Schwab's drugstore plays a big part of my life for some strange reason. I'm at Schwab's and having coffee one evening, and a friend of mine comes running up to me, said, "Hey, Don, you want to be in a movie?" He said, "Don't pay anything, but it'd be fun to do."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, Jerry Warren's got this movie, blah, 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 blah." And, okay, that's fine. And he said, "Come on with me. Jerry's down the street." So we went down the street, and Jerry and I talked for a few minutes. He said, "Good." He said, "I want you to do the lead in this." And my buddy who had come down had already been committed to the lead by Jerry. And Jerry said, "Do you mind if you play that second role?" And he said, "No, I don't mind." So I felt kind of guilty, having done this, but I didn't feel so guilty that I turned it down.
Right. Wow. And there's a fight scene you have in there, and it looks like you're throwing some pretty good punches in there. Did you have any kind of fight choreography help, or did you guys just get together and wing it, basically?
We just sort of winged it. We did. Steve Conti, who was in that movie with me, was a very good close friend of mine, and Steve was, he was like, I think maybe Steve got paid minimum too, because he wouldn't have worked otherwise. But Steve insisted that we have some time to, work out the fight routines, whatever it was, and because he didn't want anybody to get hurt. Me, at that time, I was never concerned about getting hurt. I would have fallen off the top of the building if it had been the script,
Mm-hmm.
I was the young immortal, as most young guys are. A lot of young guys are.
Right. So Warren wasn't too concerned about it either. He was just going to let you go at it.
Warren didn't really. He wasn't too concerned about the film. Quite frankly, he just wanted to get the thing on tape and get it over with. He was not interested in making a good movie, or even anything that might resemble a good movie.
Right. To his credit, I've actually read. I've got a quote from him here where he says, "On Teenage Zombies, I just put together a picture that was long enough to play the lower half of my double bill." That's all he was looking for.
Yep, that was it. Because we requested a little rehearsal time, or could we, shoot a scene a second time, and it was no.
Yeah. So he was upfront about it, at least. That's good.
Oh yeah, no, he didn't try to hide it.
So did you ever attend any kind of promotion for the film, or or the screening or anything?
No, not on that film. I didn't. No,
Okay.
actually, the first film, which is interesting, the Paradise Alley with Hugo Haas,
Mm-hmm.
we had a premiere on it.
Oh.
I got Kooky Burns. Remember the comb?
Oh yeah.
The comb?
Kooky, lend me your comb.
I got a hold of his girlfriend, Asa Maynard, and she was a beautiful blonde. Looked right for the. And I rented a T-Bird convertible, and we came up, and they had the stands at the movie theater, and all of these people screaming. We get out of the car, and they're all screaming, and who is it? They had no idea who I was or anything else. So I remember we walk up, Asa and I, we go up, and they had George Chess was the announcer on the mic. George was in that time in the 50s. He was big internationally as one of the great MCs of the world,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we came up there. Hey, he says, this is a young romantic lead in the film, Don Sullivan. And I said, no, Don Sullivan. Oh, yeah. So then we talked for a few minutes, and we got done, and George said, well, that's great. Okay, thank you. And as Asa and I walk off, I hear him say, yeah, that was John Sullivan. He couldn't get my name straight. So after the premiere was over, I came outside, and there was an actress at the time, a very successful young actress named Colleen Gray. I don't know if you're familiar with her or not.
Yes, definitely.
Anyway, Colleen Gray all of a sudden is up in front of me. Oh, Don, could I have your autograph?
Wow.
And I looked at this beautiful girl, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, something wrong here. And so I just played it very straight. Normally I would have said, well, I'll give you at that time, I'll give you the autograph if you'll give me your phone number or something like that.
Right.
But I didn't. I just signed it. And then I look over at Hugo Haas and Lance Fuller over there laughing their heads off. They'd set Colleen Gray up, coming up to me because they figured I would react in some way trying to get her number or whatever, So it was a joke being played on me, but I was pretty into it. At least I recognized it. That was a fun premiere. Not many little B actors have a premiere of their movies, so I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it sounds great. So speaking of B films, now the next kind of film you went into was that Monster Piedras Blancas. Was that the next one? After Teenage Zombies?
God, I wish I could know the rotation. I think it was, yeah.
Okay.
I think the last one I did was Giant Gila Monster, I think.
Right. So how were you cast for Piedras Blancas?
That was through an agent.
Oh.
Jeannie Carmen, as I understand it, and I don't know, it may or may not be true, Jeannie Carmen put the money up for that movie. I think she was either engaged or about to be married to somebody in Texas who was very wealthy, and in order to keep her happy or whatever, they said, well, we'll back the movie, or maybe they were trying to make money. I don't know. But she picked me up off of a picture.
Huh.
And, yeah, that's how I got it. The agent called up and said, "You've got a movie, you know."
Wow. Well, you two worked pretty well together on screen. What were your memories of her?
Oh, I liked Jeannie a lot. She was so terrific. As a matter of fact, I saw her down here at a celebrity autograph signing convention in the Valley over there. She was right. She and I were side by side, and I couldn't believe she looked so great. Here she is. She was 70-some years old, and looked incredibly and was so agile and mentally sharp. And then we finished that convention, and wouldn't you know, about 3 months later, I get word that she died.
Oh, that's a shame.
She had leukemia, and she didn't tell anybody anything about it, but it wasn't visible in any manner at that convention. But she was a sweetheart, Jeannie.
Mm-hmm. So,
she played a lot of kind of sleazy, that's probably the wrong word, but she played a lot of sex bimbo types in a lot of things, and played that imagery up because it was successful for her, but she wasn't that way at all. She was a very sweet gal.
oh, very nice. And also in Piedras Blancas is one of my favorite kind of old-time actors, Les Tremaine, who was big in radio.
Oh,
made a lot
he's one of my favorite too. Got it.
Yeah.
I love Les Tremaine. I as you probably sense already, I have a warm sense of humor, and I say that with a sense of humor. I have a good sense of humor, but Les Tremaine was fun because he also had a good sense of humor. He knew what was good in life, bad in life, and what was worthwhile, and even doing B movies, and he really had probably more talent than he had done some A movie work before. But even on a B movie, he knew that it was part of the industry, and enjoyed the people, and you're lucky to be working as a creative artist. I love Les Tremaine. He was a sweetheart.
Yeah, I read that he actually did the Piedras Blancas as a favor to his friend Doug Barrick, the director.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he always looks like he's having a great time, no matter what he's doing or what he's in. He always seems like he's having a good time.
Yeah, he did. We'd have dinner, and he'd have a good time over the dinner, over the wine. He just, he was enjoying life. Nice man. I don't know what happened to that we didn't remain in contact.
Right.
But I'm sure he was working until, the time of his death.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And then, how about John Harmon? Any memories of him? He played the lighthouse keeper. You guys had a little friction in the movie. What?
Yeah. John and I didn't. We didn't bond, or we didn't. I don't recall any personal friction.
Right.
He was pretty professional. He just did his job, and that was it. He wasn't like Les Tremaine. He didn't, have the same attitude. So I've nothing to say about him. Quite frankly, I didn't associate with him other than when we were shooting the film.
Now, I assume since it's a low budget, kind of on location shooting, I assume the days were fairly long. So who would you how would you pass the time? Who would you pal around with on set and while waiting around?
Jeannie and Les.
Okay.
Yeah, that was always the three of us,
Right. I thought in the movie, you, Les Tremaine, and then Forrest Lewis, who played the sheriff, you were kind of like the three heroes. You had a nice, easy chemistry going that kind of helped keep things more believable, relatively speaking.
Well, Forrest was a nice man, a very low, moderate. He did a lot of film work also, but yeah, it was fun. It was a good group. I have to tell you though that you'll find in auditions or interviews that you do in the future and so forth, or done in the past, I guess, actors and actresses all are grateful to be working they're of a nature that they seem to bond together. You know, birds of a feather type of a relationship. It's hard to find. There's a few cases where on the set would get into fights and so forth. I guess that's more prevalent today, but at the time that I was working, God, everybody was happy to be working, and they loved the people they worked with because they were the same ilk, you know.
Right. Sounds like it was pretty idyllic then. Nice, easy.
It was. Everything was. Not to be, well, I guess to show my age, but it was an idyllic time in the United States and in California. Just everything, every positive thing that you could want in life was here at that time.
Right.
It's a different world today, and I think there are new positives that take the place of the old ones. But for me, I'm an old-fashioned type of coming from Idaho and everything. I enjoyed that very, very much.
Right. Now, on Piedras Blancas, you had a pretty famous, well, soon-to-be famous cinematographer, Philip Lathrop. I mean, he went on to photograph films like Days of Wine and Roses and The Pink Panther. I mean, he made it big. Did you have any...
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know him.
Okay, so you didn't have any interaction with him or anything, really?
No,
okay.
Not at all.
Okay, how about this? Was it awkward filming that romantic sequence on the beach where you pulled a from here to eternity trick with Gene Kelly?
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. I have to tell you, and I'll try to keep this in the right frame of explaining it so it doesn't offend anybody.
Okay.
Number one, I was embarrassed to begin with because you probably noticed in the scene, I was kind of a skinny little young actor. I didn't have the bulging muscles of From Here to Eternity with Burt Lancaster, you know. So the beach scene and From Here to Eternity.
Oh yeah.
Burt Lancaster, Deborah Carr. Lancaster had these bulging shoulder muscles and so on. I didn't have that. I was the thin kid. I wasn't eating so well, maybe, but in any event, when I first read that, I thought, oh God, I don't want to be photographed in a swimming suit, trying to. But you do what you have to do in movies or theater. So we get down there, and at that time it was in Cayucas, up in Northern California, and the townspeople had come down to watch the shooting of the film. And there were probably 30, 40 teenagers from high school that were around there, mostly girls. And so we started to shoot this scene, and before we shot the scene, the director said, all right, you've got a swimming suit. And I said, no, I'm not wardrobe. I thought you'd bring a suit. He said, oh, well, I don't have a suit. Wait, he says, in the back of the trunk of my car, I've got a suit. So he goes and he comes out and had like almost a bikini type of a suit. And I put it on. It was too small for me. It was really tight, bikini type. So that's preying in my mind also. Now I come out of the water at the time of the scene, and I have to sit down next to Jeannie, and then go into the romantic. Well, we're shooting, and then I come out of the water and I sit down. Some of the private parts come out of the suit.
Oh, no.
They're exposed. And they kept the scene, and all the teenage girls are going, they're laughing and giggling and carrying on, and I'm mortified. Absolutely mortified. Now we get things straightened out, go back out. I come out of this water and I sit down again, and the same thing happens again. And this time they erupt in great laughter. They're pointing and carrying on. Now I get angry. So I go to the director and I said, look, this suit is going to probably happen every time we shoot the shot. I can't help it. Can you shoot me from the waist up? And let's get it done. And he said, good idea. So I go out and I come in. Same thing happened, but they shot it from the waist up when we got it done. But it was not a fun scene to do.
Oh, man.
Of course, Jeannie thought it was very, very funny, but...
Of course. Wow. You can actually, in that scene, you can plainly see a tattoo on your shoulder, too. It's never commented on in the movie. So I assume that was a real tattoo?
The Marine Corps emblem.
Okay.
You know, I was 4 years in the Marine Corps, so.
So it's from your Marine Corps days.
Like most young guys, I felt I needed to get a tattoo, you know.
Right. So what do you think of the monster suit in that movie? It was designed by the producer, Jack Kevin, who also helped build the Creature from the Black Lagoon suit.
Well, the suit really was the star of the movie almost, because it was unique and it was a very scary thing. They used it 2 or 3 other movies, as I understand, with slight adaptations. Still would be in vogue, that look and that suit. You could still use it for a monster movie in today's environment.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive looking, and they photographed it really well. How did it look like in person? I mean, did it look rubbery in person, or did it look pretty good?
It looked scarier in person than it did on film.
Wow.
I swear. It was pretty frightening when they had the guy in it who was a big guy, and it was pretty scary.
Also,
I didn't get scared, but I would have, if I'd encountered it in a dark evening somewhere, I would have got scared. You know?
Right. And also kind of scary, I thought, was the severed head prop they used. It was pretty gruesome for the time. You know, I mean, late 50s. What do you think of it? How did it look in person?
Well, I didn't see it on the film. I wasn't at, when they were shooting that. I wasn't there. So.
That's right. That makes sense. You just had a reaction shot. That was, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So but it was. I understand it was a very real looking head, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And the climax of the film, on top of the lighthouse, that looked a little daunting to the players to me. Was that you way up there scrambling up the ladder on the top?
Absolutely. As I said, I would have jumped off a building if they'd have told me to in those days.
Oh, man.
And I had no concern about safety. I was going to make it as realistic as I could, you know.
Well, it's very impressive. And so were there any mishaps at all during filming of any kind, you recall?
No.
Okay.
No, it went very smooth.
Okay, good. And so I read that the budget was about $30,000. So I assume you were, again, making the SAG minimum, basically?
That's all I ever made was SAG minimum.
Oh, okay.
The most successful movie that I made was SAG minimum, you know.
Right. Okay.
And that's still today true. Around Hollywood, my daughter's doing some of these TV shows and independent movies. She's up to a couple hundred more than minimum now, but it's you're either at that minimum level or you're a star and you're making the big dollars. There's not too much of an intermediate positioning in film.
And that was the same back in the 50s?
Oh, yeah. In fact, it was one of the reasons. There were several reasons, but one of the reasons that in 1960 I left the acting industry was at that time, and it didn't turn out to be true, but at that time the thought process was around Hollywood, if you were doing B movies, you were a B movie actor, and you would never be in any of the big films. And after 6 years of never getting a decent film and doing a number of B movies, I sort of felt that, I didn't have anywhere to go, really. Right.
So on Piedras Blancas, did you attend any kind of premiere on that one?
No, but it's interesting that, as I understand it, Jeannie and I talked, and we were going to go up this year. Unfortunately, she's not around now, but in Cayucas, they celebrate every year and have been celebrating for the last 50 years the movie. They have a day when they have a big picnic and play the film and drink beer and have a good time. And I think she had gone up there once or twice. I didn't even know about it until I talked to her at the celebrity signing contest. But we thought both of us would go up this year. It'd be fun.
Oh, that sounds great. You should definitely attend that. You'd be a big hit.
Yeah, I beg pardon?
You'd be a big hit. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun. You get to be my age, and I'm still working in the cosmetic industry, creating new products. But I enjoyed this little renaissance of the film industry that that I was in the 50s. So it's fun. I know we've gone to a number of conventions, science fiction conventions and monster conventions. And, you know, the only reason you go, it's just sort of a little bit of an acknowledgement that you were part of that genre of the 50s, and it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of people these days who do appreciate those films. You know, the B pictures and the sci-fi films from the 50s, and so yeah, it must be very gratifying to be a part of that. So,
well, and surprising because you see, I had gotten out of the acting industry and into hair care and skin care, creating products for Vidal Sassoon and other companies, and I didn't even realize that there was anybody that even knew or was interested in these B movies of the 50s. So only last year did I discover that there was a whole bunch of websites and different things on it, and I said, my God, I didn't know this even existed. So that was interesting.
Yeah, it's huge. It's great. So one more question about Piedras Blancas. Have you watched the film lately, and what did you think of it then as compared to now? I have to tell you that I never watch any of the films that I've done. Oh, okay.
I don't have any particular reason for not watching them, but by the same token, I don't have any real reason to watch them again. You know, I've seen them all.
Yeah.
And I probably was less impressed by them than some of the people that are fans of the monster movie genre. You know.
Right.
But I will say this, and it's an interesting thing. Some of the films that I did, TV and different things, and movies, at the time, I was so critical of because I thought, my God, at the time there was James Dean and Marlon Brando, and they were pumping out the Paul Newman. And they were doing these A movies that were just incredible. You know, it was the maybe the most interesting time in Hollywood because of the talent that existed. So my movies, in comparison, were so mediocre compared to East of Eden with James Dean or something, Jimmy Dean, and then I just felt, I don't know, it was kind of demoralizing as an actor because I just felt, and I didn't have anybody behind me to say, look, you have to go through these stages. It's a learning process, and it may take 10 years or 15 years to mature into to get everything out of your acting talent that's there. You know, stay with it. I didn't have anybody doing that to me, and I just kind of lost heart. You know, when I didn't see the progression into real top A movies, but you're not going to get an A movie out of a B movie on $15,000. You know. Right.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so let's go on to the Giant Gila Monster, which, like I said, is a real favorite of mine. It was the first one I ever showed my son. And I find it to have a real wholesome charm to it that, you know, is very appealing, not least because of your kind of role model portrayal.
Right,
so, yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I didn't realize it at the time, but if I compared the work that I was doing in the beginning and on down to the last, which was a Giant Gila Monster, you could see a progression where I was getting better, actually, more relaxed, more into character, and you know, there was quite a bit of improvement, and it was my favorite movie.
Oh, it was. That's great.
I worked with some great people. Ken Curtis was probably the one that had one of the big influences on me at the time because Ken, you remember him, Festus and Gunsmoke?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and the John Ford Company, yep.
Right. Well, Ken was the producer of this, or I think he was my producer. And Ken came to me and he said, look, anything you don't like, a line or a word, throw it out, put your own words in there. Any direction you want to go, and so forth, just feel free to do it. Well, boy, is that a great attitude to have with an actor. It just relaxes you because that's that movie, and perhaps some of that may have shown through. I don't know.
Oh, I think so. You've got a real easy charm in that film that really shines through. It's
Thank you.
very good. And so Ken Curtis, was he a real hands-on producer? Was he on the set a lot then during shooting?
No. They were, you see, these were going to be again lower half to fill the billing. There was a chain of movie theaters, about 800 movie theaters. God, I was trying to think of the name of the man that owned them, but I can't right now. It'll come to me. But these movies were made. This and The Killer Shrew were made for the lower half of the movies to play in those drive-in movies. Which saved the guy a lot of money, So they had a budget of, an adequate budget for an independent little monster thing. I had, I think, $250,000 budget.
Wow.
We came in at 185, so we actually were under budget because everything went well and smooth and happily, So, but no, they didn't. Kellogg was the director, Ray Kellogg.
Right.
And he was directing because he was a special effects man at MGM and had done a lot of special effects work and was very talented. So Ken made a deal with him, do the special effects, and I'll let you direct the movie. So and he was very nice and very easy to work with. A very nice man, but Ken actually wasn't around that much, frankly.
Well, he actually starred in The Killer Shrews as well as producing both films. So I assume he was pretty busy.
Yeah, and I've never seen The Killer Shrews, so I didn't know. I don't know James Best either, although I admire him because I know 10% of anything that James Best ever made went to an orphanage. So I thought he was quite that's pretty admirable,
That is, I didn't know that. That's very impressive. Also, putting in an appearance in The Killer Shrews was Gordon McClendon, who was the financial backer of both films.
That's the name you just got. He had all these drive-in movies, and he made these two movies as second billing.
Right. Did you meet him or have any interaction with him?
I did meet him. Didn't have great conversations with him, but I did meet him. Yes, he's a nice man. Mm-hmm. Nice.
How did you get the Giant Gila Monster gig?
My agent must have got a call from a picture from Ken that was sent to Ken Curtis. So I had an audition with Ken, and I went over, and I always had a little ukulele, a banjo ukulele.
Right.
And Ken says, "Do you sing?" And I said, "Hey, I write songs. I'm really not a singer, but I can, I carry a tune." And he said, "Really? Yeah, well, that's good." He said, "Jay Sims is the man that's doing the script of the movie." He said, "He's got 3 days to put this together, so we'll take some music into it also." It was pretty simple. He just got to know me. He didn't bother. I didn't have to read or do any acting for him or audition. Really, it's just a personal thing, and we got along very well. I guess maybe because we're both Irish. I don't know, but so he said, "Fine, you got it, but I do want the songs, and so I of course, as sophisticated as I am, I said, yeah, sure, you can have the songs." I was happy to get the movie,
Right.
So but I remember when we finally got down to Dallas, Texas, getting ready to shoot the film, Ken comes in and he said, "Let me hear you sing this song, So I sang the song, and he said, "Man, I said, maybe a little more." And he took the ukulele and he started to sing, and I didn't realize he was a singing cowboy at Republic Studios, I think. Certainly in the John Wayne films, he sang a lot. He had this beautiful voice.
Oh.
And that intimidated me when you have somebody really with a voice, and but it. I think if you're acting, the sincerity will cover up for a lot of lack of talent. Because I watch these when I sing the song to my little sister,
Mm-hmm.
crippled sister.
Right.
you don't pay any attention to the fact that I'm not a great singer. It's just sort of absorbed into that scene because it's a real scene. You know, it really it works.
It does.
I'm saying you don't have to have a great voice to make a song work. You know, there's a lot of. I know that in Hollywood, because I wrote probably 80 songs over that 5-year period. I met a lot of singers, and some of them were so great, so talented, that went on to have no career, and others who just had secondary type voices went on to be stars. Trini Lopez, for example, I knew Trini quite well, and he became a big star, and he really didn't have a great voice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you never know. It's, you know, very unpredictable.
Right. Well, you did 3 songs for the movie. Now, had you already written those songs, or did you write those kind of specially for the film?
No, I'd already written those songs.
Okay.
I wrote the songs, and usually I'm writing with somebody else in mind because I didn't think I wasn't a singer, and I can say that very honestly today. I'm like everybody else in the shower. You sound pretty well, you know.
Right.
And with an echo chamber in the studio, I can sound pretty well. But I wrote the songs, some of that I made that way. You automatically know who I wrote that for. Elvis, you know.
Right.
I made that way. Laugh Children Laugh. That one I wrote for me. That was mine. I was raised by a Christian Scientist grandmother, and not that Christian Science comes into it, but there's a love of family that came from her that I absorbed. So I had no problems. I always liked to write songs that had a spiritual background and a family background. I wrote one song called Little Match Girl in England, another one, Remy, the Daydreams of a Little Boy. I wrote that for a series that never was made, but it was a real good song.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of fun writing songs.
Great. And then you did the other third one was My Baby She Rocks.
And My Baby She Rocks, right. And that, again, was written for Elvis. You know, I was hoping somehow to accidentally bump into Elvis, which I did, incidentally, and at the time, and never, ever thought to suggest the songs to him. That's pretty funny now that I think about it. I'd taken the time to write songs for Elvis, and when I finally met him, I didn't even think about it.
Oh, no.
That's funny. I was down at next to Swamp. There was a restaurant called Cooey's, and after 10 o'clock at night, a lot of actors and actresses would hang out down there and have cheeseburgers and so forth. So I'm in there one night. At that time, my hair was long, and I had a black heavy sweater and a black coat, sport jacket, and black pants. I really really playing the actor bit.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy comes over the table. He says, "Hey, Elvis just heard that you've done a couple of movies and wondered if he could talk to you." And I look over, and Elvis is there with, a couple of the guys that he ran around with. And I wasn't an Elvis fan because I was a little older than Elvis. I'd been in the Marine Corps when he was first, coming out. But I knew that he'd just been on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he was, one of the high singers. So I said, "Sure." I go at Elvis. He gets up, we shake hands, introduce him. And he said, "It's awfully noisy and busy in here. Can we come to the parking lot? I want to ask you some questions." And I said, "Absolutely." So we went out there, and he wanted to know about directing and lights, hitting the marks, and all of the things. And of course, this is, how you make a king. A king is only made if the people around him claim as the king. So when Elvis is acting like I'm the star, I'm not feeling like a star. I'm saying, well, in the director's desk, I'm giving him all this great advice as if I really knew what I was talking about. But anyway, after about 20 minutes of this, we ended up getting philosophical because he comes from Memphis or Atlanta, whichever it was. And I came from Idaho, and we were talking about, God, what, isn't life a funny thing and this and that. We're looking up the stars, saying, I wonder what it's all about. The thing that young guys do a lot. Mm-hmm. And so we went out there about 3/4 of an hour, and he was one of the nicest young guys I've ever met. It was way before his drug period or his eating binges or all the problems that came on. But it's a nice part of my memory to have had that time with him at when it was probably the happiest time of his life too,
Right. Wow. Yeah, so back to your songs, you received a special songs by Don Sullivan on the Giant Gila Monster. Now, did that net you any extra cash, or did you just throw the songs in?
I just threw the songs in.
Okay. Well, fair enough. And the press book, the film's press book, claims that those songs were, quote, scheduled for early release on the Roscoe record label. So, anything come of that?
I've never heard that before, but no, I don't think so. I think the song, none of the songs in that movie were of a quality to be released. I think that was just PR.
Okay, so just PR.
For example, I think I Made That Way was a great song had it been done right. But what happened on it was when we sang when I sang the vocal to it, it was in conjunction with, if I get this right, in conjunction with the music which was on tape. And they blended the two at the time. Therefore, they didn't make individual tapes. They blended the two so that you couldn't, if you wanted to raise the vocal, you automatically raised the musical. There was no adjustment possible. So it wasn't done correctly. And if you've noticed in that song, you can't hear the singing.
Right.
So it wouldn't have been the quality of the release. And the other two songs, My Baby, She Rocks, My Baby She Rocks, that didn't have any music, so that wouldn't be released. And the other one, which is Laugh Children Laugh, just wasn't of a nature to be released. So, no, they were never released.
Yeah, and the Laugh Children Laugh, you did right on set. I assume they just recorded. That was it, right? There wasn't any.
That was it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, My Baby She Rocks. That's one I've always wanted to hear the whole thing of. It's always frustrated to me that it's only 15 seconds long. I want to hear the whole song.
Well, I think that could have been, Elvis could have made it work. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So on the Gila Monster, I assume you did your own stunts again, right? There weren't any specific stunts.
I did, but I learned a lesson on that. A little late after about 5 years, I finally learned that actors should not do their own stunt work.
and how did you learn that?
Well, we're shooting the scene where I drive the hot rod with the nitroglycerin in it. Mm-hmm. I drive it down and leap out and go into the Gila Monster and blow him up. Well, we're doing it. Ken Curtis says, Don, you think you can dive out of the car? Just put it in neutral, dive out of the car, and the car will, slow down on its own. You're not going that fast anyway. Mm-hmm. So, me, sure, I can do anything. Absolutely, no problem. Well, I'm doing about 10 miles an hour in the car, maybe about 8 or 10 miles an hour in this little hot rod. And I open the door and I dive out. I had no idea at 10 miles an hour when you hit the ground how hard it is. Oh, God. I laid there for about 5 minutes. I thought I'd broken half the bones in my body. Yeah. And I told Ken, I said, if you want to retake that scene, you get a stunt man because I'm crippled. Oh. It's just actors shouldn't do their own stunt work,
But luckily it was one take.
And we didn't have any pads or anything, Mm-hmm. If it was an A movie, they would have had a straw pit there that looked like the ground. It had knee pads and elbow pads, and then the stuntman would have done it rather than the actor. But on a B movie, man, I tell you, it's pretty tough on the actors and actresses sometimes, these B movies.
Wow. Well, you learned your lesson. So I assume you were a little sore then the next day of shooting.
Yeah, I was in good shape, so I was fine the next day.
Okay.
I'm exaggerating when I say I was all busted up. I was bruised a little bit, but I healed rapidly in those days. So next day I was fine.
Right.
No problem.
Right. Speaking of the hot rods, so where did they get all the hot rods? And did you enjoy driving yours around? Looked like fun.
It was fun. These were two national championship hot rods. McLennan got someplace, I don't know where. But they were so fast that in the scenes where I had to start up and drive out of a driveway, it was very difficult because if you push down on the gas pedal, the wheels would go, and just throw gravel and stuff all over. But so you have to just kind of steady, fast tapping of the gas pedal, and they go, and you could get out of there, but they were so fast. Which leads to an interesting story. God, the insanity of this one ought to scare everybody. When we're doing the scene where I'm driving down the road, and the wind is whipping in my face, they had mounted on the front of the hot rod a rack, the camera, the cameraman, and the director were on the front of the hot rod and couldn't see anything in front of me. So the only visibility I had was glancing to the left at the plow pit or the edge of the road. I'm in that hot rod doing 75 miles an hour down the highway. No visibility, totally, just glancing out the side. I'm assuming they had up the road 3 or 4 miles. They blocked off traffic, but it was a country road. Maybe there wasn't any traffic. But it was very, very dangerous. It could have been a major accident there and killed 3 or 4 people.
Wow. Yikes. Yeah, so where was the...
But nobody seemed very concerned. I mean, it didn't concern me, and it didn't concern the director or the cameraman. I don't know.
Wow.
I've always been a little paranoid about things, so maybe in retrospect, I see it from a little more scary. I guess probably my son today would say, "Oh, Dad, this is nothing. I could do that."
I don't know. So where was these roads that you were driving down? I mean, where was it filmed? I read that it was Dallas, the Dallas area. Is that right?
It was. We shot it outside of the Dallas area, obviously in the country road, but it was within 10, 15 miles of Dallas.
Okay. That's what it was. How, speaking of being, on location down there in Texas, how was that? I mean, did they set you up in nice hotels? Were you treated well? What was it like there?
Yeah, we stayed in the Elvis Hotel, which was one of the nicer hotels in Dallas. Had an interesting experience there. The second day of the shoot, I went down. I've been a bacon and egger all my life. The day doesn't start without bacon and eggs. So if I don't have breakfast until 2 in the afternoon, it's bacon and eggs generally, in one form or another. So I was getting up extra early to go down to the restaurant that opened at, I think, 5:30 in the morning in the hotel. And I'd have my bacon and eggs and then catch the ride and go on out to the set and start the day's work. Well, I go in the restaurant, and I've always been one, as you can tell, I'm relatively social. So if I'm eating, if I have company to eat with it, I really enjoy it much more than eating alone. So I got my eggs at a, what do they call it, the cafeteria style,
right.
Anyway, I got my bacon and eggs, and I start to sit down, and I look, there's a gentleman sitting at a table. So I went over and I said, "You mind if I join you?" And he said, No, sit down. So I sat down, and there about 2 or 3 minutes, we introduced each other. It was Edgar Bergen.
Wow.
Johnny McCarthy's ventriloquist.
Yeah.
And of course, I was very impressed because he was a nationally known comedian, through the Johnny McCarthy and Edgar Fred, or whatever the name of the other dummy was. But we're sitting there, we have a nice conversation, and have our breakfast together finish about 6:30 or whatever it was. And he says, I've got a young daughter, kind of like you to meet her. Well, I looked across the table, and he had a bulbous nose, and he was bald. And I thought, yeah, I really want to meet your daughter. Thank you. No, thank you. I didn't realize it was Candace Bergen.
Oh, wow.
So I took a pass on it. He gave me a number, and I never did call. Which I look back on and say, oh, God, I would really love to tell the story to Candace Bergen because
Definitely.
I think she would enjoy it. She'd know the nature of her dad. You know, he was a nice man.
Right. Oh, wow. So you turned down a possible date with Candace Bergen.
Yeah. I watch House now, you know, and I watch her on House. She's still a lovely-looking lady, you know.
Right, yeah. So on the Gila Monster, I don't suppose you actually met the Gila Monster itself or its handler? Were you
No,
involved?
that was all done back in California.
Okay.
I don't know if it was done before or after the movie, but Ray Kellogg did all of that. I never saw it.
Who was this?
Oh, boy. Senior moment. Sheriff was a very nice man, and he'd worked in the undergone Wayne movies, so he was a pro, and we get along very well. So they kind of left us alone. We worked out our own little routines, and we didn't get much direction. There wasn't much direction to give. They were pretty simple. Yeah, but it's pretty simple stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, you had a pretty good chemistry with your leading lady, Lisa Simone, who was she was a former Miss France.
Yeah, I felt kind of guilty in retrospect on that because, as I said before, you know, you have to make a king. You can't play the king. It has to be made by the other people. She couldn't play the sexy female in this thing unless I made her the sexy female in this thing. And I must say, I was just young enough to be impressed by sometimes the blonde girl over the brunette, or the shorter girl over the, you know, over a tall girl. You know, I had all the problems of youth. Mm-hmm. So I didn't find Lisa that attractive for me, even though she was Miss France. And so I don't think I really treated her in the movie as well as I could have. I could have done some ad-lib things and so forth. In retrospect, I could do much better now than I did then. But everybody will say that. That's the first thing you do when you finish a movie is you sit down and say, oh, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that, you know.
Right.
But I don't think I gave her a real fair shot in that movie. You know, she was fine. She was good. She was a nice person, but I was a little weak in that area. I should have been a better actor.
So she just wasn't your type, basically.
No, really wasn't.
Okay. Well, you.
Now, in the one you mentioned before, the movie we mentioned before, the
Piedras, Blancas?
Teenage Zombies.
Uh-huh.
The little gal in there, that was my type.
Ah.
Yeah, and I played it entirely different. I played protective with her, you know, as much as I could. But anyway, my type, I don't know what that means to this particular interview, but my type was always a smaller, very gentle, generally blonde female, although I've been married a couple of times and both were brunettes. That's just the way life goes, I guess.
Yes, right. Okay. That's pretty funny. And so, publicity materials, again, claims that a hand-picked crew of 27 experienced Hollywood technicians were flown in for these movies. Did you run into 27 people on set?
I don't. Well, you know something. I suspect on the Giant Gila Monster, I don't know how many people it takes to make a movie, but they would have to have professionals in there.
Yeah.
Because at that time, I don't think, at that time, you know, in Florida and Dallas and different places, they didn't have the technical people there. Today, I think there are people they could hire at any of these locations, but, you Yeah, they probably did fly in 27. Yeah.
I mean, was there really such a big crew though on set? That seems like for a a relatively low budget movie, that seems like a lot of folks.
Well, I have to admit, when if you're an actor doing a movie, you just don't, you have no concept about a lot of things because you're involved yourself. It's all about me type of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people were on. I have no idea how many people were on the set.
Okay.
No idea.
So could have been. Could have been. Okay. Did you do any publicity for the Gila Monster?
The Gila Monster publicity? No.
No. Okay.
No publicity at all.
No screenings, no premieres, nothing like that.
No, they weren't looking. There was no desire to make that movie available really across the country or to people, other than through the drive-in movies and the second billing.
Right. Okay.
Although it was interesting that 50 years later, Coors Beer gave a free DVD of the movie with a six-pack of Coors on a national basis. So
Wow.
I think that had something to do with the number of people that have been exposed to the movie.
Oh, absolutely. And so, do you have any thoughts on why it's remained so popular over the years? I mean, it is. It's very. It's a beloved film.
Oh, yeah, I do. I spent the last part of the year trying to analyze why that movie, and it's very simple as far as I'm concerned. The number one thing is it is a movie that anybody can have for their children because there's no lines, no sex, no drinking. It's a clean movie. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
For children.
Right.
Number two is, it probably has because, and I didn't realize when I wrote Laugh Children Laugh, I wrote it as a Adam and Eve type of thing.
Ah.
A movie about Adam and Eve. I had no idea. I wasn't thinking religiously. It just an interesting topic that I thought would make it a nice song, you know. And but I think that probably has an appeal for Christians, you know, across the country, of different denominations. It doesn't specialize in any particular church, but I think it does have for Christian people. Maybe has for some of them it has an appeal in that sense. That song. So between the song and the nature of the movie being great for kids, I think that's a great deal of the popularity, and I don't know what else. You know, Jay Sims, as I said, who is the author of this thing, tried to throw in everything in the kitchen into this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He had songs, he had hot rods, he had monsters. he just had a little of everything, you know.
Yes, and he had the absolute squarest hip DJ I've ever seen on film too. That was great. The Steamroller Smith character. Yeah. That's just too funny. Very entertaining. Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, that was the first monster movie I ever showed my son, and we both just enjoy it very much.
Well, it's the only one of the films that I did that I really enjoy. I should have qualified before, but I do on occasion want to see that film, and I enjoy it, you know, in watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was in a minor movie way, it was a tour de force. You know, I wrote the songs, sang the songs, and starred in the movie, and so you know, who could ask for more?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Have you seen the colorized version that's come out on DVD?
Yes, I have. Yep, it looks good.
It does look good. I was very surprised. They did a good job on that, and the flesh tones seem normal, so that's good. So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about one more film that I've seen of yours called The Rebel Set, which you remember that one? That's kind of a heist film, and you play a real different character from the other ones.
Right.
You're not the clean-cut hero anymore. You're kind of a beatnik, goateed, ladies' man type of guy.
Well, let me ask you. I ask you a question as if I'm auditioning you. Did you find the character to be different enough to fit the genre of what we're trying to do?
Oh, absolutely.
Did I seem like, yeah?
Yeah, very different. Yeah, it was certainly not Chase Winstead or the Piedras Blancas.
Right.
It was very different. Yeah, almost kind of like there was almost a world weary feel to it.
Yeah, yeah. But you know something? You know how I got that movie? Well, let me tell you how I got the movie.
Okay.
I'm walking down the street from Hollywood Boulevard. This is on it's Sunset Boulevard, excuse me, on a Saturday morning. No, about 7 o'clock. I'm going down to get a cup of coffee. Car pulls up, big black Cadillac pulls up. Hey, you're an actor. And I said, yeah. Come here. And I said, no. And I start to walk. And he said, no, I'm an agent. Here's my card. I go back and I look at the card. Sure, he's an agent. And he said, look, Richard Long has a movie at Columbia, and he's unable to fulfill the movie because he broke up with his wife or his girlfriend, and he's so distraught that he's not going to be able to do the movie. I told the producer I had another actor as good or better than him. And he said, are you interested? And I said, of course. He said, get in, we'll drive down there. So we drove down to Columbia Studios. I read for the producer-director. They said, fine. We start shooting on Monday.
Wow.
Is that weird?
That's
serendipity at its very best. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you took over for Richard Long then, who was a pretty big TV star at that time.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
The only thing that was bad on the movie that I didn't like was I was never ever a great memorizer of scripts. My daughter, I envy her because she can take 5 or 6 pages of dialogue and in a matter of an hour have it down pat.
Mm-hmm.
It was never that easy for me, and so to have a whole script to try to learn in one day was almost impossible for me. To really be able to do a good job with it, you know.
Right.
I felt I could, if I'd had that script for a week, I could have done a much better job with the movie. But you know, you do what you have to do.
Right. How was the director Gene Fowler to work with on that?
He was very good. I was unhappy, really unhappy, because it was the only time in my career that I really went up on lines. And to this day, I have no idea why I went up. But we were shooting a scene where I had to talk about my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I blew it about 6 or 7 times. And Gene finally said, "Oh, we'll forget it. We'll work around." And he went on, and which I don't think he handled really well. I think he could have said, "Look, let's go in for 5 minutes. We'll run over the script, and I want to talk to you, and come back and we'll do it." But he didn't do that. He just, all the movies so much are budget oriented.
Right.
Unless you get an A movie, and then by God, they'll shoot this scene 27 times if necessary to get a good take.
Right.
But in B movies, they don't shoot 6 or 7 times the scene.
So he basically just decided to drop the scene?
Yeah, drop the scene out. And that didn't make me happy at all. But I wasn't unhappy with him. I was unhappy with me because I blew the lines,
Right. Well, you hadn't had enough time to prepare.
I didn't really know. I really didn't.
Yeah. How was Edward Platt to work with?
Edward Platt, very nice. Unfortunately, you're going to find that the questions about different actors and so forth, I say they're nice, they're good people, or they're friendly. So, but everybody, I didn't work with anybody that ever bothered me. That's interesting. I'm trying to think if it's ever had a problem, but I don't think so. I guess I was pretty easy to work with as an actor. I never got any beefs with anybody. Ed Platt was a nice guy. He was a good sense of humor, kind of a wry sense of humor,
Mm-hmm. Well, he did. He of course became famous on Get Smart, playing the chief. The straight man to Don.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But he plays in this one. He plays again against type. A ruthless character.
That wasn't Ed Platt.
Yeah, that was him. You know, he played
No.
he played basically, you know, your boss in the heist. He was the mastermind behind it.
Right. I'm thinking Ed Platt is somebody else in my memory bank, but no, I know who you're talking about, and he was the boss in the movie. I didn't think his name was Ed Platt. He also played the inspector in Pink Panther, didn't he?
In the films, no, that was Herbert Lom, I think.
I got that mixed up. All right. Next question.
I heard somewhere that you worked with Lon Chaney Jr. at one time.
I did.
Yeah, and what was that?
It was a movie. Well, it was kind of turned out to be, unfortunately, a farce. But I flew down to Florida to play the young lieutenant with Lon Chaney Jr. in a movie called Chivato, which I think is traitor or coward in Spanish. Lon Chaney was being starred in this movie, and it was a movie about Castro. Where Castro was the hero of the movie.
Wow.
And I was one of Castro's men, and I was one of the heroes of the movie. So we shoot this. We get about halfway through the shooting, and the politics in the United States changed from pro-Castro to anti-Castro very abruptly. So now we finished the movie, and the director says, "What am I going to do? I've got a pro-Castro movie and an anti-Castro United States." So he tried to dub in words to make it just the opposite of what the movie was shot. So that when I came up to some little kids, and I said, "Here, kid, take this home to your family. It'll at least feed you for a day, and we'll try to get more tomorrow." I'm going up to little kids and saying, "Here, this bread. You keep that for me later, and if you eat one crumb, I kill you." And they're dubbing that time. Only I'm smiling with a nice smile as I'm saying these ugly. And the same with everybody. It never worked. It was never released, as I understand.
Wow.
But Lon Chaney, we had our moments with him. He used to. He likes to go out on the edge on everything. You know, he tells you that Jack Dempsey said that Lon could have been the heavyweight champion of the world. You know, that type of thing. And he used to box with Jack Dempsey.
Oh.
And I guess he was pretty good because he was certainly strong enough. But he was drinking quite a bit, and there was an electrical tower where we were shooting part of the scenes. And it was up, 50, 60 feet in the air. And Lon would climb up there, and he'd get about 35 feet up, and he'd hang out over the edge by one, grab the rail and be hanging out over the cement by one hand, hollering at the director, and the director saying, "Lon, goddammit, come down from there." And Lon would say, "Yeah, I'm pretty macho, Oh, he was too much.
Wow, and he wasn't a young man at that time either.
Oh, no, not at all. I don't know what his age was, but I would guess, just physically, I'm guessing he was probably in his 60s, if not 70s.
Yeah. Huh. So.
But he still was very macho, though. Yeah.
Very much.
He and I had a lot of fun because there was from up on the top of the towers how he used to climb up there because you could look down and there was a pit down there where the water came in and went out the other side of this electrical thing. And in that water pool at the bottom where small lobsters get in there, and they couldn't get out, and they were just trapped. And they grew, and there was all these big lobsters in this big water pit there. So we got a hold of a 3-pronged metal spear, tied a cord to the top of it, and we'd get up there, and we'd drop that spear trying to spear a lobster.
From the tower.
And Lon was fascinated with this because he thought he could do it. Well, we tried, I don't know, for a couple of days ago, we tried every time we were between takes, and we never got one lobster. Never got even, not even, I don't think we even hit one because when the spear hit the water, it would skew off to one side or the other,
Right. And where was this shooting?
In Florida, Miami, Florida.
Okay, Miami. Wow. All right. So did Lon like to tell a lot of stories whatnot? Was he a raconteur type of a fellow?
Well, he didn't tell them to me. No, I didn't get any stories out of him. Kind of busy trying to get the lobster, but
busy hunting lobsters.
yeah, he really get into what he was doing. I'll say that. Deep concentration, this type of guy.
Right.
He liked to succeed. He felt he was capable. I guess most people feel they're capable of doing anything if they have to.
Right.
Or they want to.
So, well, I did want to ask one more thing about your songwriting. You wrote a lot of songs. Now, have any of them ever been recorded or even published?
No, well, not other than the Giant Gila Monster, no. This was, songwriting for me was kind of a therapeutical thing, because in the acting industry, I, worked for a week and then I'd be off for 3 months, and, I'm just a very active individual anyway, always, so I needed something to fill in the space. And at that time, I was running around with Warren Oates and Dean Stanton, and we were, drink a little wine and we'd sing our songs, and they'd bring one they'd written, I'd bring one I'd written, and we were just having fun. So I never, and I didn't the contacts actually at all, because I'm a kid from Idaho and I'm in big Hollywood. I didn't know anybody, had no musical connections at all, so I wrote the songs, but none of them were ever, even exhibited.
You never thought about?
I did write one time a complete script for a movie called Sousaphone, which was the story of a little girl that falls in love with the sousaphone, and talking sousaphone. And I wrote all the songs in there. It was a musical, and sent it to Disney, and it came back unopened. We did not open or solicit outside. We have our own inside writers. I sent it to Hanna-Barbera. It came back unopened. We do not. We have our own inside writers. So it was thrown into a trunk, which 5 years later was lost, and that went down the drain with 4 songs. It was good song. It was a beautiful little Disney movie, but if I'd had any contacts in Hollywood, there's other ways to get to Disney, that I didn't know about then.
Right. Oh, that's a shame. But
yeah,
so you were hanging out with Warren Oates and Harry Stanton. Now that sounds like a pretty fun crowd.
Well, it was a fun crowd. We enjoyed it, but I used to sit. It was the funny part about it is I would sit and I'd in my own mind and say, I know why I'm in the acting industry. I don't know why these guys are never going to go anywhere. Well, they both became stars. So that's Hollywood.
Right. That's funny. So this is before they'd hit it big, then, obviously.
Oh, yeah. This was back when we were all just starting,
Right. Wow. All right. So I guess now's a good time to kind of, you kind of alluded to this before, but, back then you were a good-looking young man. You had an easy charm on camera, and yet, you left acting after only a couple of years.
Right.
What caused that?
Well, in 1959, I did a pilot called Tightrope with Touch Connors, and it was very successful. Ross and Green, they were going to change a half-hour TV show to an hour show, and they called me and they said, "We liked you in this pilot very much. We want to write it in as the second lead in the hour TV series." So I was all thrilled about that. We spent the next 2 months getting scripts and auditioning and so forth. And then they got into a fight with the sponsor got in a fight with the network over the time slot, and the whole thing fell apart. So I wasted 3 months. Now Rouse and Green called me and they said, "Look, we apologize for what's happened, but we're doing a new television pilot, and we want to. It's a young Abe Lincoln of the North Woods up in Oregon, and we would like you to do a star in the pilot."
So you would have played.
Terrific.
You would have played Abe Lincoln as a young man then.
Yeah, well, not Abe Lincoln. No, this would be a modern Abe Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
A modern attorney in Oregon, but the same nature as Abe Lincoln.
Gotcha.
So I said, terrific. And we get scripts, and I probably should have sued them or something because they ended up going back to New York to get the money for the pilot. And they're back there, and the money people said, all right, we'll put up the money, but we like another actor. We like Andrew Prine. We don't know Sullivan, but Andrew Prine has done a number of things, and this and that. If you put Andrew Prine in this pilot, we'll put up the money. So Rouse Green called me and said, yeah, I'm really sorry a second time, Don, but it's not going to go. So I was so disgusted, I called up a friend of mine, an actress, who was married to a promoter that had quite a bit of funds available for different things. And I had lunch with her, and I said, look, I've got a bunch of songs. I'm going to start a song company producing songs. And would you like to get involved? Get Miller is his name, Frank Miller, and get Frank involved because he'd probably enjoy this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she said, look, I've already started a company with Jerry Redding, a hair care company, and it's doing extremely well. She said, you don't have a chemistry background. I said, yeah, at the University of Idaho. She said, why don't you come and work for a while, make some money, and then you can go back into the acting. So at the time, I was getting pretty hungry because I hadn't worked there was an actor strike, and it went on for a year and a half. So I'd gone over a year and a half without working.
Wow.
Late 60s, late 1960, from 59 to 60, and on up. And so I said, great, all right, let's do that. So I went out and did some shows and stuff on the road for him, and then worked with Jerry Redding, creating a couple of new products and philosophy of new products and so forth. And I got fascinated by it, plus the fact that I was also eating steaks and living well and creating, because I did find the creativity stretches. You don't have to be an actor to be creative. Mm-hmm. You can be a creative accountant, a creative salesman, a creative bricklayer, whatever. If you have the creative talent, it will come out in the work that you do. Mm-hmm. So you can be that creative desire can be fulfilled in a lot of areas. I never looked back. I went on and over the years was acknowledged as probably one of the, if not the top creative cosmetic chemist in the industry during the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s. Created literally hundreds of millions of products that are sold each year. And I, for example, liquid silk, which is used in products all over the world. That was my creation. I should have patented it, but I didn't. But I was the one that hydrolyzed liquid silk.
Wow.
In the beginning, and created the concept. So that was when I got out of the industry and had another career that in itself was maybe as good or better than I ever would have done in the film industry. You never take the same road over again,
Right. So you basically just got fed up with being jerked around and being out of work for so long.
Well, I didn't feel it jerked around. I just felt that the industry that's the nature of the industry, is one of uncertainty and it just wasn't where I wanted to be. I wanted something where I had a little more control of my own life,
right,
rather than just floating around hoping that somebody on Saturday morning would pick me up off the street to do a movie,
Right. So the fans' loss was the cosmetic industry's gain, then, basically.
Well, I guess so. Yeah.
Because I had
a lot of fun. I did over 5,000 shows across the world. Taught university courses. I wrote a book. And created, as I say, dozens and dozens of new products, new concept products.
Wow.
So I had a tremendous amount of fun.
Oh, that's great. What was the book title that you wrote?
The Perfect Look. Yeah, pretty uncreative in terms of the title.
Oh, it's catchy. It's good. And yeah, I have to say that when I mentioned to a few friends that I was going to be interviewing you, they said, "Well, you got to ask him why you left acting, because everybody likes what you did on screen." So everybody was kind of wondering what happened to Don Sullivan, and now we know. Very exciting.
Yeah, and I'd be certainly not honest if I didn't say I have some feelings that I wish I had stayed in the acting industry. But as I said, I just didn't know. I was a little on the insecure side in those days, I guess, about talent, because I thought talent was something that just would automatically be there if you had it. When I didn't realize it, let's take an actor like Rock Hudson. In the beginning days, and this is all knowledge to me now, but in the beginning days, they used to shoot him one line at a time because he was so bad. They'd shoot it a dozen times and then put the lines together and make a scene and kept him going. Later on, because of just the nature of working and so forth, he got to be a very good actor. Now, I don't think that anybody, I didn't realize at the time that James Dean had been 10 years in the industry before he did any of the big movies. He came to Hollywood, had a couple of small parts, didn't go anywhere, went back to New York, had a couple of things back there, didn't go anywhere, came back to California, and then did, over a 10-year period, all this transition. So.
Right. Well, that's about all the questions I've got. Is there anything you want to add? Is there any funny story you want to tell, or anything in particular you want to close with?
No, I don't think so. I guess we covered a lot of territory. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan, for talking with me.
Thank you very much for the interest. I'm most appreciative.
Oh, well, it's my absolute pleasure. Again, I just want to state that the Gila Monster and Piedras Blancas are two of my favorites. It's just movies that aren't made like that anymore. And so it's been a real pleasure.
Okay, we'll hope my daughter carries the tradition on.
I will be looking for her on the big screen.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.